are back with our series of happy hour chats that we do on Fridays. For those who maybe haven't joined us for one of these before, what we generally do is talk about important stories that have been happening in the last couple of weeks and talk about some of the behind the scenes ways that we report the news, why we do what we do, and open it up to questions from our readers. So this week, I am chatting with our summer interns who are here with us in the newsroom. Many of them are coming to the end of their internships as we head into August and people are headed back to school or off to whatever projects they have set up next. And so we actually have quite a few interns with us this summer. And so I've got two of them with me right now, and we're going to bring a few people in and out of the broadcast here and just talk a little bit about what they've done and what they're going to do next and where you can find their work. So right now I have with me Ty Vinson and Selena Tieber. And Ty, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about yourself, where you came from and what you've been doing at the Oregonian this summer?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Ty Vinson. I am a senior at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And this is actually my last day of my 10-week internship with the Oregonian. I was a reporter on the daily life team and breaking news team and did a little bit of social video photo stuff there too. Yeah.
Great. And Selena?
Yeah, hi, my name is Selena Tieber. I am from Portland, Oregon, and I'm going to be an incoming senior this upcoming fall at the University of San Diego. And I've actually finished my internship here at the Oregonian, finished last week, but coming back to say hello. I was on the breaking news team and did a lot of coverage with coronavirus, particularly how it impacts people of color and immigrants. And then I also reported a lot on the federal presence of officers and in Portland during the Black Lives Matter protests.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about for people who maybe have never done this type of an internship. And a lot of people don't do internships. When you come into something like this, obviously you guys have a lot of experience coming in. That's why you're here. But what are your goals when you come into this type of a work experience? What did you want to accomplish while you were here this summer?
Yeah, so for me at least, I think whenever I have an internship, I just want to get experience working with new people and in a new location. I think it helps me get more comfortable in the journalism field in general. I think it helps to just, make it a little bit easier to travel and be able to cover a wide range of things. So yeah, even just getting the experience being here is really my main thing, I'd say.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this internship because, like I said earlier, I'm from Portland. We've been getting the Oregonian and reading it pretty much for my entire life. And so personally, it was just really exciting for me to be able to work for something that I've known about forever. And I was really excited to do some breaking news, which is what I was working on this summer. I've had a couple other journalism internships, but I've never done anything with breaking news until now, which is absolutely a fundamental skill you need to have if you want to be a journalist in the work field. So that was my main goal coming in. Of course, with coronavirus going on, that kind of changed what stories we were able to write about. And so going in, I didn't even necessarily have I want to write stories about this and this because, everything was kind of up in the air, which made it a little bit more exciting, actually.
Right. And your internship experience was different because of the coronavirus. For those who don't know, we're not in the newsroom full time right now like we would normally be. We're still out in the field, but we didn't have that same space, that shared space that we would normally have. So what's that been like? Has that, obviously you guys have both done other internships, you've worked in other newsrooms. How has this felt different?
It's definitely been different, of course. I think the main thing is trying to find that work-life balance, because it can get really easy to just kind of get in the routine of working and working until you can't anymore. I think that's been the main problem that I've seen. But overall, I think this type of work still kind of works from home, because you can still communicate with people over the phone and through things like this even. And I think it's been different, but I wouldn't necessarily trade the experience for anything else.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely weird working from home, and I had to worry that, I wouldn't be able to like connect with my editor or the other reporters and get those kind of connections that are super important that you get out of an internship. But I really feel like the communication was there, and I was still able to talk to so many people and learn so much even with working from home. But I totally agree with Ty that the work-life balance kind of was a struggle sometimes, just because work and home are one and the same.
Right. Those boundaries don't really exist right now, for sure. So during the summer that you guys have been here, you've produced some really amazing work. I'd love to hear from each of you a couple of things that you've done that you've felt the best about, or things that you'd really like to share with readers who maybe haven't seen it yet, if they haven't.
Yeah, I think closer to the beginning of this summer, I was working a lot. I was covering a lot of the day protests and marches and demonstrations, and I learned about this family in the Tigard-Tualatin area who, over 3 generations, started Black student unions in a bunch of the schools in the area, and I think that was a really good story to highlight what families are doing in response to the current social justice movement. And yeah, I thought it was really cool getting to meet a family who's been doing that kind of work for so long. And I'd say one of my other favorite things was working on a story about Portland's homelessness community and the rise in camps, just with the coronavirus pandemic, having making people have to stay in one place. And I focused on one park and sort of what people are doing to help people in that area, and what the city is planning to do to continue helping people, but at the same time allowing places to stay clean and keep people healthy.
Yeah, some of my favorite stories that I've done this summer are related to immigration and people of color and how COVID-19 has affected these communities, because we all kind of have seen the data saying that people of color are just more disproportionately affected by COVID-19. But I think it's really hard to understand why that is. You can't just look at the numbers and really understand like why that's happening. And so I spoke to people in different communities, like the Pacific Islander community, the Bhutanese refugee community in Portland, and the Indigenous Guatemalan community in Newport. And I kind of learned about like why each community might be struggling with the virus, what kind of extra protections they might need, what the government is doing to help. And it was just a really good experience being able to talk to all these different groups and learning just how difficult it is for some of them to be dealing with this virus. And then another thing that I really enjoyed reporting on was the largest outbreak in the state. It was at a church in Eastern Oregon, and it was just a really unique story all around. The church had been holding services when they weren't supposed to, and there's a lot of depth to that story as to why the largest outbreak came to be. And so I really enjoyed reporting on that.
Great. And for those watching along, we're going to put links to all of these stories that our interns mentioned during the broadcast in the comments. So if any of this sounds interesting to you and you'd like to get more information, we'll have those links available once the broadcast is done. So like I said at the top of the broadcast, internships are coming to an end. We're coming to the end of the summer. What are your future goals? What do you guys eventually want to do professionally in the journalism space?
That's a question I feel like we get asked quite a bit. I feel like I think about it every single day too. And sort of what I want to end up doing kind of changes a lot too. I think overall I'd like to even continue doing similar reporting to what I've been doing here with daily life and features and enterprise work at a large metro paper similar to the Oregonian. So yeah, if I can land a position similar to what I've been doing here, that would be more than fine with me.
Excellent.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm just hoping to work for a local news source here in Portland. This is like my favorite city, and I feel like I really understand the way the culture works and the way all the news works, and just like the community of journalists that exists in the city is really incredible, even like throughout all the different news sources. Everyone is so great and so supportive. And so, yeah, I'm just like really hoping to work for some local news source where I can help a small community or a local community.
Right. Great. So my last question for both of you is, once you're done with your internships, where can people continue to find your work? Should they follow you on Twitter? Or are you going to be writing for somebody else?
Yeah, so this fall I'm going to be one of the managing editors for the for Indiana University student newspaper, the Indiana Daily Student. So I will hopefully be doing a little bit of writing for them. And yeah, you can find that on my Twitter. And yeah, that is Ty_Vincent_. So yeah, I will probably be showing a lot of my stuff there. And then yeah, it's should be pretty easy to find any stuff if you search Indiana Daily Student.
Great.
Cool. And like I said before, I'll be heading into my senior year at the University of San Diego, and I'm going to be the editor-in-chief of our student newspaper down there, the USD Vista. And you can also find any of my work on Twitter. I'll spell my handle because my name's hard to spell. It's CELINATEBOR, so Selena Tibor. And you can connect with me there, and you'll be able to find some other contact information for me there too if you wanna chat.
Great. Well, thanks so much, you guys. I am going to bring in Ryan and Maddie now. So thank you for spending some time with me. Thank you for answering questions. And it's been so great having you guys here this summer.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to get Ryan and Maddie in here to talk about what they have been doing. Give me 1 second here. Get everybody in here. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So we're transitioning over. We just talked to Ty and Selena, and now I have Maddie and Ryan with me. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you've been doing here at the Oregonian this summer?
Yeah,
Maddie, why don't you go first?
Yeah, you go first. Yeah, my name is Maddie Smallstick. I'm from Muncie, Indiana. I'm currently studying journalism in Spanish at Indiana University.
Yeah. And what have you been doing at the Oregonian this summer?
Oh, yes. This summer I have interned for the social desk for Julie, actually, doing a lot of work with her. And I've also dabbled a little bit in writing, doing some narrative and feature pieces along with some news briefs and covering a few of the protests that have been going on.
I'm Ryan. I'm interning with the Breaking News and Podcast Desk. I am going to be a senior at the University of Oregon studying journalism and history. And I'm also going to be the editor-in-chief of the student paper down there, the Daily Emerald. Yeah, it's been a real great time.
So I talked to Ty and Selena about this a little bit. This was a unique year to do an internship, especially if you're coming from elsewhere in the country. And maybe not quite as weird of a transition if you're from Oregon, but maybe so. We're not in the newsroom; we're all working remotely. How's that been for you guys? It's you've worked in other newsrooms, you've probably done other internships, but this had to feel kind of different.
Yeah, it was definitely weird not being in a newsroom. There's definitely that really great environment there with the other reporters and editors where you can kind of like create together in the same space. But I do feel like it was a really great experience getting to do that online because it really does show that you can communicate and you can still do really great work, even within your separate homes.
Yeah, like even being from Oregon, I'm in Portland right now. In like my childhood bedroom. It's definitely been a strange experience. Like I had to get a new office chair because the one that I had was like from when I was like 12. So that was just one of the things getting used to. But like the other interns have said, doing everything remotely has been challenging. It just sort of reminds you that a lot of what you're doing is working with people and trying to make those same connections with people you're interviewing or even just people in the newsroom is a bit more difficult. There's like a little bit more friction with it being online, but you can still do it. There's still like It's definitely challenging, but it's definitely still possible, and you can still succeed like that.
Great. So that's a good segue into talking about coming into the internship. What were your goals for the summer? What did you want to accomplish while you were here?
Yeah, I guess for me, my biggest goal was just to kind of like try out a few different things. You know, this was my first big like newsroom internship, so I really wanted to get a feel for, you know, the things that I want to do in the future and the things that I want to focus on when I go back to school. And I really do feel like I got to do that. You know, Julie, you provided a lot of different opportunities for me, getting to go out and take some photos in addition to working on lengthier pieces and writing some shorter stories as well.
Yeah, the breaking news part of this internship was the biggest thing for me. Also, just getting to produce audio for like a major newsroom was pretty exciting. If not like a little, it did make me a little nervous. But yeah, like that's definitely like breaking news is definitely different when you can't really like go out into the city and like go down and see like the scene of the crime or anything like that. But one of the things that I wanted to really like focus on was reporting on like people of color. And one of my favorite stories I did this with this summer was a story about students of color working at high schools like Jefferson or Jackson or Wilson to sort of make efforts to tell administrators that they want their schools to be renamed, and how these efforts aren't necessarily new and how they've been going on for years, even before this year. But yeah, that's just sort of like what I wanted to do. And I still have like 2 weeks left, so there's still some stuff coming up.
Great. So that's a good segue. I was going to ask you guys, what were the things that you got to work on this summer that you felt the most proud of, or that were the most interesting, or where you learned something that maybe you didn't expect? Maddie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'd say one of my favorite stories that I got to work on this summer was one about the Black photographers that are going out and covering the Portland protests. It was really interesting to hear their perspective on them, specifically because these protests like more directly affect them, and just, you know, talking to them about the ways that they go about, taking photos of people and the way that they feel about the movement. I really learned a lot of things through covering that. I'd say that's probably the top one. In addition to, I did a story on these two people that kind of ended up in a serendipitous duet, the Portland State student and the opera singer Henri. It was really great to get to talk to both of them about that experience and, kind of tell people a little bit more about the story that they, saw on national news, which is really cool.
Great.
Yeah. One of the other things that has been really interesting working here to do is doing nightly protest coverage. Like for a few weeks now, I've just been sort of pitching in whenever I can, like maybe going out to rallies like outside of downtown to see what it's like there, or just sort of like following up on things that we missed throughout the night. And it's super interesting seeing like the day by day events going, like, and just seeing how like other reporters are tracking it on social media, and just sort of like going out there and seeing what the experience has been like actually on the ground, as opposed to like just sitting at my screen. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the work you've been doing with the podcasts? We've only been doing podcasts for about a year and a half, and so not all of our readers know that that's something that we do. We've done a lot of video and a lot more visuals, digital visual stuff in the last few years, but podcasts are new, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. So I would love to hear what you have been doing this summer with podcasts.
Yeah, I can't believe it's really only been a year and a half. So one of the podcasts I work primarily with is called Peak Northwest. Two of our reporters, Jim Ryan and Jamie Hale, like host it, and they just sort of talk about things like their favorite spots, their favorite hidden spots to go out to, or they talk with people like Samantha Bacall about how they how to like cook good meals during on a camping trip. And as someone who like isn't really an outdoorsy person by any means, like by any definition whatsoever, it's pretty interesting, and it's definitely like a lot more challenging to do that sort of thing during a pandemic.
Yes.
A lot of what I do involves like production and editing, and that sort of stuff that doesn't necessarily change with like the remote nature of the work. But it's still pretty fun nonetheless. I think like even on a Zoom call, you can still have that like same like friendly energy as you would in like a podcast studio, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but Peak Northwest is definitely a challenging one to be working on right now, though, especially because for a while people couldn't really go out. So
yeah, it's definitely like a bit more challenging now, but it's still possible to go out and like experience nature, which is great.
Great. So you guys, it sounds like you've gotten to work on some really interesting stuff, things that were fun for you or things that you felt passionately about. Now that your internships are winding down, although Ryan, you have a couple more weeks, what do you guys want to do next? What are your future goals after you've had this experience?
It's always been a goal of mine to work in a newsroom. I'm not entirely sure yet on what capacity. I'm going to be a junior in the fall, so I still have some figuring out to do. But I'd say definitely this summer, my passion for local news has definitely been ignited. It was very interesting getting to work for a local publication while it's the center of national news, and just kind of getting to see the deeper coverage and the importance of local news. So I would definitely say that I would love to end up in a local news source in the future.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a senior this following year, so I'm going to start applying for jobs. So if anyone is watching this and wants to offer me a reporting position or a production position, that would be excellent. You can follow me on Twitter. But yeah, I'll be starting as the editor-in-chief of my student-run newspaper. I'll be heading back in like late September and doing that. So, and especially like right now when discourse about like schools reopening is really at an all-time high, it's definitely like going to be a challenging time to sort of run that, but it offers like a good opportunity to like cover these schools in depth and sort of like to make sure that they're doing the right thing, right? But yeah, after that, I'll be like looking for reporting positions. I've definitely like working here has definitely reaffirmed for me like my desire to work in journalism. Like the Oregonian's like high school journalism institute, which is like a summer camp that it runs for like students of color and low income students and first generation students who are entering college. That's the reason why I got into journalism in the first place. So it's like a nice like closing circle. I forgot the metaphor, but I'm sure that someone in like the chat can like remind me of what that metaphor is.
Yeah. Well, and we'll drop a link to the high school journalism in the comments here, because it is funded by subscribers and by donations. And so we're always looking for those stories that people have of having a good experience there to help bring awareness to that and get the community support, because it is such a great program. So great. So you guys kind of talked about this a little bit in what we were talking about already. But it sounds like both of you will be going back to school and you'll be at your school newspapers in the fall. Where else can people find you? What's your Twitter? If people want to continue to follow your journey, where should they find you?
Yeah, so I'm fairly active on my Twitter in regards to my reporting. And my Twitter is just MADI_SMALS. And in the fall, I'm going to be working at a student paper, the IDS, Indiana Daily Student, and I will be the elections reporter, covering both national and state elections. So yeah, if you want to find out more about Indiana elections, follow me on Twitter.
What an exciting year to be doing.
Oh, wow.
I'm really excited, yeah.
That's awesome.
Wish you luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, y'all can follow me on Twitter. It's Ryan, RyanJJNGEYEN. You can also follow the Emerald at Daily Emerald. At Daily Emerald, that's our Twitter, and then our website's dailyemerald.com. But yeah, that's like primarily what I'm going to be doing. I've worked there for like 4 years now.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up with you guys. We've got Alex waiting in our green room here, and I'm going to ask her some of the same questions that I asked you guys. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share a little bit with me and to give some insight for our readers into how the internships work and what what you do while you're here and what you're going to do next, which is really exciting. So thank you guys. All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to transition again here. All right. Here comes Alex. Hello. Oh, I don't know if I can hear you. Let's make sure your microphone's on.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
You were the last.
Great.
You were the last one in, and I didn't do a sound check with you, so that was.
It's okay.
That's
It's
my
okay.
bad.
Figured it out.
Well,
now.
thank you for joining, and thank you for being
course.
patient. We can only have 2 guests in the broadcast at a time, but I'm going to ask you some of the same questions that I asked your fellow interns. Do you want to give everybody a little intro and a little overview of what you've been doing at the Oregonian this summer?
Sure. So I'll be going into my junior year at Indiana University this fall, and I did breaking news a lot this summer. Took a lot of those early shifts, sometimes the 5 a.m. shifts, and then I had the chance though to do some larger reporting as well. So it was a good, well-rounded summer. I feel like I got to try my hand at a lot of things.
Great. So, and I asked everybody else this too. So doing your internship this summer with coronavirus and, the remote work, we're not in the newsroom the way that we traditionally would be. What's that experience been like for you?
Yeah, it's been good. It definitely, obviously be way different if we were in the newsroom. And obviously that would be preferable, but yeah, like communication was always great between reporters. I never felt like I was alone on anything I was working on. I had great editors and a great mentor and everything who really helped this summer. And it was good to get really used to this kind of reporting that we have to do now. Calling people and just trying to report from home as much as possible. I mean, I did go out on assignment a couple times. And when I did that, I got down my routine, like when I got back to my car, I'd grab the disinfectant. Yep. So I've been getting used to that routine of when you do have to go out in the field, how are you going to keep yourself safe? It was a really good experience. And just, totally different than any other year would have been.
What we're used to, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was your goal for the summer coming in, and how do you feel like that went?
Yeah, my biggest goal was to just report on what was going on. I definitely beforehand thought it would be a lot more coronavirus coverage, but then it got to be a lot about the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was really amazing to get to write about as well. So yeah, I just wanted to try my hand at a lot of things. Like I said, I got the chance to do, and yeah, I think that was my primary goal, and that I met it. That was nice. Mm-hmm.
Great. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the stories that you did work on, things that you felt really proud of or felt like you learned a lot while you were doing it?
Sure. Yeah. So one of my first, I think it was my first longer story when I was here, was about an ASL interpreter. His name's Alex, and he actually interprets for the governor and sometimes for Mayor Ted Wheeler. And he's an immigrant from Russia, so he had a really amazing story to tell about being an immigrant, but also being a deaf immigrant, and how he got his job in this prominent interpreting role. And I didn't even know, honestly, beforehand that there were deaf interpreters. I didn't understand how that would work or why that was an important thing to have. So I learned so much reporting that story, and I hope that the people who read it got to learn a lot about his story and just about deaf interpreters in general. So let's see, what else? I also reported on, similar sort of to Ryan's story, I reported on it was with the Oregon Geographic Names Board, and names that are in the works of being changed that are like racist names of areas. And also I spoke with the city about street names that are named after people who have like racist histories, and kind of wrote a story about what name changes have been proposed, kind of where that stood. And that was really cool because there was a lot of research that went into that one. For me, I had to go pick up a book from the library because the geographic names book, it's like this big, but you can't get it online. So I had to like go to the library and get the names book. So that was really, really interesting story I got to work on as well.
That's great. That interpreter story that you did, we actually put that in the comments now every time we do a Facebook Live where he is the interpreter, because people always ask about him. So it's been wonderful to have that, and people.
I was so happy that he shared his story with me.
Yeah. That's great. And we will, again, put links to all the stories that you mentioned in the comments here, so that people who are maybe getting their first introduction to you will be able to follow up and read those stories. So we're kind of coming to the end of the summer. Everybody's internships are starting to wind down. What do you want to do next? What are your future goals?
Yeah, so I'm only going into my junior year, so I still have a couple more years in college to finish up. And I think through that, I just want to kind of hone my reporting skills even more. And I'm going to be a news editor for the fall. So I'll be able to get the other side of things as well, the editing side of things and the management side of things. So yeah, that's what the future looks like for me.
Great. So as you end your internship with us, where can people find you? You mentioned that you're going to be you're at the Indiana Daily Student, correct?
Yeah, I'm also at the Indiana Daily Student. So yeah, go to that website. I post most of my reporting on Twitter as well. I probably won't have as much of the daily reporting as some people will, just being in an editor position. But yeah, you can always find me on Twitter at @A_Hardgrave. So that's probably a good way to keep up with me.
Great. Well, like I said, we will put links to some of your work in the comments here and make sure that everybody can read that. Thank you for spending some time to talk about your experience and the work that you've gotten to do. It's been so great having all of you here this summer, and best of luck as you head back.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm going to end the broadcast now. These are all of our interns who had time to speak with me today. As always, we do these happy hour chats on Fridays where we talk about significant stories, things that are happening in the community, and how and why we do our reporting. So if readers have suggestions of topics that they would like to see us cover or questions that they have, drop them in the comments, or you can also message us on Facebook. All right. Thanks, everybody.